I think painting landscape's a real challenge because so much of it has been done before. For me, the idea of going plein air, as Van Gogh did, and sitting in the middle of a cornfield has no merit or relevance. And because of the history of it, it kind of impedes one. But the idea of seeing it afresh through other eyes and through other works, then that excites me. I'm fascinated by the language of painting, this kind of slightly archaic discipline and what relevance that has today. And of course that's the big question. Why do we get up every day and do this thing that they were doing in Lascaux, putting their hand on the wall and painting around it? My goal is to explore that by taking art's traditional subjects and making them relevant to me, and hopefully push the boundaries of what paint can do today. So all the paintings start in this way, with a monochrome underpainting, purely using carbon black. They are planned. I normally work from the top down, unless it's the portraits, which I always start on the eyes. When I'm happy with this process, I then start bringing colour into the equation, but again with the airbrush, and building up different paint, almost optically mixing some of the colours. When you find that initial inspiration within a piece of work on eBay or in a junk shop, it's that transformative effect that you're looking at paint, but obviously it may give rise to looking at a landscape. Looking at a painted waterfall that could be a waterfall, but maybe just an impastoed white mark with a frisson of cobalt blue running through it. This re-energizes. It brings new things into the equation. Just as Monet saw a sunset, or Van Gogh saw sunflowers, it's just the same thing. It's that moment of elation when two things come together and create a third. So I'm masking out areas which I've already cut stencils for. So you're making decisions about where you want heavy impasto next to flatter dragged paint, next to airbrush moments, next to acrylic moments. And it's about marrying all those things together at the same time. So the painting still has harmony, but also has moments that are that slightly agitate. Because it's about making a painting, whether it be abstract or figurative, that kind of operates from different distances. I'm fascinated by process, but I don't necessarily think I'm a process painter. I think that's almost too rigid and doesn't allow for me to respond in a way that keeps things fluid within a very rigid framework. So it's about constant conundrums. While I'm in the studio and I'm making the landscape paintings, I'm also making still life paintings. I'm also making portraits. And I don't really delineate between them. Fundamentally, you're making a mark, and if you're interested in that mark, the mark is the same in either. And even though I'm using an archaic medium, they very much talk about the meta language that is at our fingertips every day through iPhones and computing. I think the interesting thing about Van Gogh is that the images and romanticism, I would suggest, that's associated with him and his life is not necessarily therefore what his paintings are like. He's not a frenzied painter. For me, I think his paintings are incredibly considered. There's a relationship between his work and mine, and that's every aspect of that painting is considered. Everything has a subtext to it, and therefore affects the way the painting's read in the final stage. So I've just finished creating a spontaneous mark that's not a spontaneous mark, and now I'm just deliberating on in terms of what I've actually done. Even though you're in control of it, there's a moment where you still don't really know what you're going to get until you've revealed and pulled off the stencil. They're incredibly complicated paintings, and even just doing that small moment, it's quite intense. We live in an age where most people see everything through our phones. And obviously that's a two-dimensional thing, but these things have surface and space within them. So I'm fascinated in that whole scenario about how we see things today, growing up, looking at things through a flat surface. Does that then change, or does it heighten the way you see things in the everyday? Do we devalue the JPEG or the image through our need to constantly consume? And obviously I expect the things that I make are the antithesis to that, because they take a phenomenal amount of time to make, and they're not what you think they are. And some days I could spend all day putting a constellation of dots within a painting. With these, the dots come in at the last moment, but you're responding again to the things that have come before it. Obviously, I'm keen that the paintings maybe pose questions. They don't necessarily have to give answers. It's not just about re-looking and seeing things within the initial subject, it's also about re-looking and seeing things in the things that I create as well. It's about posing, raising questions. And at that point, then I have to give it over to the audience to make that decision and that leap. But, maybe there's the potential to re-look at Van Gogh and reconsider his work.